Okay, so we've spent time talking about the cell and the importance of the plasma membrane that creates that border of the cell. And now we need to talk about what's inside the cell. What is inside that border, that plasma membrane is separating from the rest of the environment. So this is predominantly going to be cytoplasm with organelles. What the cytoplasm is it's essentially kind of a gelatinous type liquid that's between the plasma membrane and the nucleus. And the nucleus is this main, large, in this schematic, purple circle here. Almost all of our cells, red blood cells don't have a nucleus, but almost all of our cells have at least one nucleus, with the exception of the red blood cells. Cytosol is going to be the synonymous term for cytoplasm. It's mostly composed of water with some solutes in it. And these solutes are going to be protein, salts, sugars, things like that. Then mixed in this cytosol are organelles. The nucleus is absolutely considered one of the organelles, but there are a lot of other organelles or structures in the cell that are considered the metabolic machinery of the cell. They're going to carry out the functions of any cell to help it carry out its job. At the same time, these organelles are going to do things such as create ATP so that there's energy for the cell to carry out its functions and for the body to carry out its functions. There are also these things called inclusions that you can find inside the cell. These are little granules. They look kind of like little specks, and they have things such as glycogen or possibly pigments. They can also be little droplets of lipids, vacuoles, or crystals. When we look at one of the most important organelles within the cell, we look at the mitochondria. The mitochondria, in some cases, is referred to as the powerhouse of the cell, which can be kind of a misnomer. I like to use that term simply because it is easy to remember then that it's associated with generating ATP, and we use ATP for energy. The important part about the structure, or an important thing to note about the structure of mitochondria, is that it actually has a double membrane. And it has these shelf-like structures called cristae, like in here. And so this is a double membrane. It has this inner membrane and an outer membrane. And when we get to the next unit, you're going to see why this is important. This outer membrane creates kind of a sub-area within the mitochondria so that the inner membrane can function with what we call the electron transport chain. And this is not necessarily important for this particular exam, this first exam, but for Unit 4, covering Chapter 24, you're going to need to know what happens here and what the electron transport chain does. And what it does is it generates the majority of the ATP that we use in our body. So it is the relationship of this inner membrane with the electron transport chain that generates a lot of ATP. And so, as I just said, it's going to provide most of the cell's ATP, and this is through aerobic cellular respiration, which is the electron transport chain. Mitochondria, because they have such an important role in generating energy, actually have their own DNA and RNA, in addition to the DNA and RNA that's found within the cell that they exist in.